urgent? Poland has made a loud statement. Ukrainians have only 4 months left. Closure of shelters for displaced persons. The Polish Minister of Education has appealed to Kyiv regarding Ukrainian textbooks. The Volhynia tragedy again. Duda has already spoken about this. Zelensky delivered his closing remark. In Warsaw, they are trying to classify arms imports. Polish media have leaked the information. More on this coming up. Watch until the end. Hello, this is Ukraine Today. I'm Darina Hutsakalo, and here are the latest events. Poland has decided to gradually close shelters for refugees from Ukraine. The relevant bill has already been approved by the country's government.
Starting from the 1st of November, in Poland, the so-called collective accommodation centers for Ukrainian refugees will only accept members of protected groups. This includes pensioners, pregnant women, and people with disabilities. The forms of assistance for Ukrainian refugees are changing according to their needs.
Currently, Ukrainians have the right to free accommodation in collective centers only for the first 120 days of their stay in Poland. After this period, financial co-payment is required.
The Ministry of Internal Affairs and Administration believes that now is the time when this type of support can be discontinued.
At the same time, the Polish government is dissatisfied with how the Volhynia tragedy is presented in Ukrainian textbooks.
The Polish side is very concerned about the content of Ukrainian history textbooks that depict the events in Volhynia between 1943 and 1947, wrote Barbara Nowacka, the head of the Ministry of National Education, in a letter to her Ukrainian counterpart. She asked him to take immediate action, including reviewing the textbooks.
It became known that the Polish official appealed to the Ukrainian minister to take immediate action, including reviewing other textbooks and preparing new ones that would reflect the current state of Polish-Ukrainian relations.
Nowacka also suggested considering the possibility of changing the Commission's operating rules so that both sides could propose textbooks of mutual interest for review.
Incidentally, the day before, Polish President Andrzej Duda, who is finishing his second term, stated that Ukraine's President Zelensky had not heard about the Volhynia tragedy until he spoke with him.
I have spoken with successive presidents of Ukraine, both with President Poroshenko and with President Zelensky. I do not deny that I have always felt more understanding from President Zelensky. I think he was telling the truth. And when he told me, Andrzej, I have never heard about the killings, about the murder of Poles in Western Ukraine in Volhynia. We were not taught this in school.
Duda also rejected the idea that residents of Western Ukraine know about the Volhynia tragedy. He expressed doubt that a grandfather would boast to his grandchildren, telling them in their cradle how he killed his neighbor. Poland could have classified the import of weapons. This is stated in a publication by the Polish portal Defense24.
For the first time, Poland did not include data on the import of basic weapons in its 2024 report. Since 2022, Poland has also not reported the amount of basic weapons transferred to Ukraine.
According to the publication, by the end of 2024, Bulgaria reported exporting to Poland 33 2S1 Gvozdika self-propelled artillery units, as well as 2 more 2A31 howitzers for such SPGs, 8 MTLBs, and 78 towed mortars of 120 mm caliber. During this time, the Poles also cooperated with the Dutch and the British. The publication also mentions, and I quote, an interesting exchange of artillery weapons between Poland and Slovakia.
Along with the United States, South Korea is currently the largest exporter of major weapons to Poland.
Let me remind you that recently there was a major scandal in Poland regarding weapons. There, at an abandoned warehouse, anti-aircraft systems intended for Ukraine were found. This became known directly from Polish media. At first, reports mentioned unknown containers on the territory of the Aero Club. Later, even more shocking details emerged.
The company was tasked with transporting the anti-aircraft systems to Ukraine. For reasons that remain unclear, it did not do so. The equipment was stored in warehouses near the border.
The Ministry of Defense immediately responded to the incident. They stated that containers were found at the border not only with weapons but also with ammunition, but they do not belong to the Polish army.
We inform you that the containers with ammunition and weapons found in the town of Laski in the Subcarpathian region do not belong to the Polish army. The relevant services are guarding the site and the equipment.
The spokesperson for the Polish Minister Coordinator of Special Services, Jacek Dobricki, also confirmed that the weapons belong to a private company that is licensed to trade in arms. However, there is greater concern that the warehouse was left without supervision.
The warehouse was not supervised, which is a scandal. This type of weapon must be properly stored and monitored.
Nevertheless, Poland remains a strong ally of Ukraine. It was Poland that, on the very first day of the full-scale invasion, began accepting Ukrainian refugees and openly called Russia's actions terrorism. In addition, the neighboring country decided to supply the Ukrainian defense forces with armored vehicles, including tanks. Thanks to its ally, the Ukrainian army's arsenal now includes Polish artillery systems, self-propelled mortars, multiple launch rocket systems, towed guns, shells, air defense systems, and fighter jets. Despite everything, the country continues to advocate for Ukraine on the world stage. It has become known that trainloads of weapons are heading to the armed forces of Ukraine. We will be armed with $10 billion worth of equipment. The Kremlin's lackeys are scared out of their wits. No one was prepared for this. Trump has decided to strike at Moscow on his own. The allies have switched to turbo mode. We'll tell you in a moment how this is affecting Ukraine right now.
Every voice matters. Join our community, support independent journalism, and help us bring you the truth from Ukraine. Become a member of Ukraine today. Join us now.
$10 billion for arming Ukraine, 17 Patriots, ammunition, missiles, and even a call to bomb Moscow. All of this is no longer just a dream, but reality. The USA is officially back on the side of good.
I hang up the phone with Putin. He says it was a great conversation. And then missiles fly toward Kyiv. Talks don't matter.
The rhetoric is surprising, but there are nuances. The USA is not giving Ukraine weapons for free, but selling them. At the same time, it's not Kyiv who pays. Here's how the scheme works. NATO members buy American weapons, and then they transfer them to Ukraine.
Donald Trump has this problem. He doesn't propose any solutions himself. He joins in on successful options, and a successful option emerged, which was discussed at the Alliance Summit, where on the one hand, the Alliance agreed to Trump's demand to increase defense spending to 5%, and that's important. But these 5% must necessarily include aid to Ukraine. Thus, the countries that are helping us don't have to stretch themselves thin, looking for ways to both meet the alliance's requirements and help Ukraine repel Russian aggression.
In this way, everyone benefits. The US profits, Ukraine receives the necessary weapons, and Europe isn't torn apart. In Germany, Trump's initiative was immediately welcomed. German Chancellor Merz stated that he had discussed the purchase of American weapons by Europeans with the American president several times, and added that Germany would play a decisive role.
We are doing this in our own interests. This will help Ukraine defend itself against Russian bombing terror. This is the only way to increase pressure on Moscow in order to finally reach a peace agreement. At last, we will show that we are moving in the same direction as our security partners.
Security for Ukraine is priority number one. And security means air defense systems. Kyiv has repeatedly requested additional Patriots, and in this regard, Trump was quite surprising as he promised to deliver far more than just one or two systems.
Overall, this agreement covers both ammunition and missiles. We have 17 Patriots being prepared for shipment. They won't need them, so 17 will be sent, and a large number of those 17 will go straight to the battlefield. This can be done quickly.
However, there are some nuances to this as well. Trump promises to deliver them in the near future. Meanwhile, German Defense Minister Boris Pistorius states that the delivery of the first system could take place within a few months. At the same time, Trump himself said that several countries that have Patriots intend to exchange them, meaning they will transfer them to Ukraine and the US will replace them. There are also plans to supply Kyiv with short-range missiles, howitzer shells, and medium-range air-to-air missiles. But for now, everything remains vague. No one knows the exact list except for the Patriots, and most importantly, it is unknown when the deliveries will begin.
Indeed, at the moment, there is a lot of uncertainty, a lot of questions. Well, we would like this process to start as soon as possible, and overall, it would actually benefit Trump himself to begin actively selling weapons to Europe and transferring them to Ukraine, because in this way, America would receive money and he could report to his voters about what he has achieved from Europe, that they are buying much more American weaponry and so on and so forth. Moreover, it is already clear to everyone that in order to get concessions from Putin, you have to put strong pressure on him, because any concessions are perceived by him as weakness, and in response, he becomes rude and more brazen.
Trump also intends to put financial pressure on Putin. The American president gave Putin an ultimatum, either a ceasefire within 50 days, or the US government will impose 100% tariffs on Russian goods, as well as secondary sanctions against countries that buy oil from Russia. But Trump has already been criticized for this in the European Union, not for being too tough, but for being too slow. The head of European diplomacy, Kaja Kallas, believes that a 50-day deadline is too long.
On the one hand, it's very positive that President Trump is taking a firm stance toward Russia. On the other hand, 50 days is a very long time when we see that they are killing innocent civilians.
The question is whether such a fickle Trump might change sides again. But on the plus side, the Russians are only angering the American president so far, since it was Medvedev who has long irritated the American president, who was the first to respond to Trump's initiative. To add fuel to the fire, he also claimed that Trump had supposedly issued a theatrical ultimatum to the Kremlin.
The world shuddered, waiting for the consequences. Military Europe was disappointed. Russia didn't care.
Whether this is really the case, we will find out very soon, and we sincerely hope that Trump has stopped playing games and now truly understands all the threats.
How do you assess the latest statements coming from Poland towards Ukraine? Share your opinion in the comments. Hit the like button under the video and stay up to date with the main news. There are almost 440,000 of us subscribed. There's more to come. See you soon!